Hello everyone, this is Justin here for this week's review, Jiku Senshi Spielbahn. So yes, after a decade in their spaceship after the loss of their home planet of Cleen, along with their families to the Walla Empire, our two main characters, Spielbahn and Diana, come to Earth to avenge their loved ones and to save the Earth from the same villains that nearly caused their extinction. And when worse comes to worse, they can armor up to power up. But as the series advances, maybe there is more to Spielbahn's family than he already thinks, such as his sister Helen being alive. But other than that, that's pretty much a simple synopsis. The original pace is, the initial pace is actually pretty fast, even for the 43 episode length. They do show some revealing points within the first 3 episodes, which kind of surprised me, but they excellently go on with it and keeps you hooked to the show. The villains led by Queen Pandora, played by Soga Machiko, most famous as Bandora in Zyuranger, whose character would be the basis of Rita Repulsa in Power Rangers. She brings a good majority of the qualities of that character as well to this particular role. She can be menacing and comedic with her deep voice, but unfortunately, I'm not sure if you want to consider this a spoiler, she doesn't do any strange songs. But another famous Japanese musician is Mickey Curtis, would later come halfway into the series as one of her generals. Apparently, he's one of Japan's fathers of Japanese rock, and his getup reflects the rockers of the 70s and 80s pretty excellently well. But the villains are pretty cruel and nasty, but they have a good mix of menace and humor despite the show being relatively dark. I mean, Queen Pandora does some pretty cool things to Helen and Dr. Bio throughout the show. I would like to say that they do put a lot of focus on Helen on the first half, and I really like it. You really do feel bad for her, not because she is such a stunning and beautiful woman, but she is also so vulnerable with everything that goes on with her, and has to avoid her brother because she could be used to hurt or kill him. And so if you ever get the chance to see Spielbahn or Google Images, once again the character is played by Wataru Hiroshi, who previously played Sharivan, the second space sheriff. Apparently, it was a comeback for him because previously he was in a car accident. He spent a good amount of time recovering and all that. I heard he was uncomfortable with taking the role at first because he felt it was going to typecast him in tokusatsu roles. But I think that was also the same with the actress who played Helen, Morinaga Naomi. But he does a very, very excellent job with this role. Even though the physicality is very similar to that of his character as Sharivan, as well as how he expresses his emotions, but his motivations are very clear in how the characters are distinct, and how they express those motivations. If you don't remember Morinaga Naomi, she also played Ani in another Space Sheriff show, Shider, which was also become part of the VR Troopers franchise in the US. She also thought that the role would also typecast her. But even though this series came out a couple of years after Shider, Morinaga Naomi looks fully grown in this. I mean, in Shider, she still looked like she could have been maybe 15 or 16, though I think, like I said, she was only like 20 at the time. But in this series, she actually does look exactly her age, which was 22 or 23, and man, she looks stunning, and I don't really quite feel as guilty looking at her legs and the panty shots and all that. And yes, you'll get panty shots again. Yes, fan service with real women and not anime girls. No wonder why I avoid reviewing mostly anime these days. And of course, Diana's civilian outfit is pretty out of place, and you will get a lot of panty shots with her too. And apparently she was actually pretty cool with that, the actress. But hey, seeing how the female assistants were being progressively more involved in the action in the other Metal Hero shows, it's nice that Diana gets a suit to power up. Sadly, her American counterpart in VR Troopers couldn't dress up in that skimpy outfit. That would have been pretty nice. But as the series goes on, it does introduce more characters, but my main issue is that for some reason, with this specific family that Spielbahn and Diana meet and initially befriend, for some reason he gives him a fake name, which was Joe Yosuke. But with other civilians he meets, he has no problem telling him his real name, and I do get the impression Maybe he wants nothing to do with that family or something. But there is something about Watari I want to talk about when I get to the conclusion of my review, so for now, I'll leave the story and characters at an 8.75 out of 10. The action is pretty exciting and still has a kind of wildness driven by rage. In the first half of the series, before Spielvang would finish his opponent, you would look inside his head of what motivates him, and he would tell his enemy to face his wrath, and it makes it feel much more violent. The action is pretty excellent both in and out of costume. Out of costume, Diana likes to use a lot of hip attacks to make her opponents somewhat blush. Wish you would use that atomic butt drop that Mark Hunt did to Vanderlei Silva in their fight back in Pride, too. That would be pretty cool. So the fights with Diana do add some humor. With Spielvang, it's much more serious. Plus, he was doing the whole double-edged lightsaber thing long before Darth Maul made it cool. Another thing I liked was the bypass slip. Like, if they're fighting in a civilian populated area, Spielvang can just use this teleport device, the bypass slip, to take them to a more isolated location for the safety of the population, which I thought was pretty cool. And another trait I like is that Spielvang and Diana can use each other's suits, like to touch each other like this, and like power each other up whenever they got weak. So it was a very distinct feature, but still unique by today's standards of tokusatsu, which has progressed since then. And thankfully they don't abuse that feature too much, which was pretty good for me. So I give the action a 9 out of 10. And the music works pretty good too. The hook to the opening song kind of brings this harmonious kind of feel, but then it gets pretty explosive. A lot of the action background music uses the same chords and tempo as the Space Sheriff series, so you think it kind of feels being recycled, but it still works with the pace and all that. Plus, Diana and Helen had their own songs sung by their respective actresses. Diana has this kind of old-school, tough girl feel kind of song, like a Skeban kind of girl, while Helen's song is much more depressing and sad. So you get a good mix of what works within the pace, the tone, and the time of the series, which I give her an overall score of a 9.5 out of 10, but the song could have been, some of the other music could have been more masculine. Well, once again, do not use VR Troopers as your barometer as your expectations to the series. It has nothing to do with virtual reality or anything of that nature, even though this was the series used for, I'm not trying to sound racist here. I think the black dude's name was like BJ or something. And then I forgot the girl's name. It's been years since I saw VR Troopers. So don't use that VR Troopers as a barometer to what defines this series. And like Metalder, it does have some dark things, but nothing that invokes controversy like World War II. But the characters are all interesting in their own way, and I enjoyed the villain since I am now a Soga Machiko fan. I really loved her presence, and one thing I wanted to add in context to Watari Hiroshi is after seeing him in his regular clothes, I think during his prime, he could have been a great Kaneda in a live-action Akira movie. I know people still talk about it theoretically, in context to making an Akira movie, but I think if they did do it when they had the time, I think this guy had it. But he has the look, the skills, the charisma, and the ability to play the character. If the time was right back then, oh man, he would have just nailed it. But still, I say if you want a gateway to the Metal Hero series, even without exposure to the Space Sheriff franchise that paved way for it, I still strongly recommend this series, which I give an overall score of a 9 out of 10. And as for next week's review, if I have the time, unfortunately I'll be going on a business trip to Mie Prefecture. But if I do find the time, I will see the next live-action Rurouni Kenshin movie, and I will review it. Alright, that's all. See you around.